Because shoplifting is theft, which is a crime, and despite what you may believe, there is no such entity as victimless crime. Heroin addiction may explain your actions, but it does not excuse them. Mr. Murphy, you are a habitual thief, devoid of regret and remorse. In sentencing you to 6 months imprisonment, my only worry is that it will not be long before we meet again. Mr. Renton, I understand that you have entered into a program of rehabilitation in an attempt to wean yourself away from heroin. The suspension of your sentence is conditional on your continued cooperation with this program. Should you stand guilty before me again, I shall not hesitate to impose a custodial sentence.
Thank you, Your Honor. With God's help, I'll conquer this terrible affliction.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Film Bros podcast. My name is Isaiah Lucas, and I am joined by my co-host,
Nick.
It is us two yet again.
Yeah, I'm all too familiar with that introduction now. Usually when that happens, I'm like, I lost the cadence. What's happening?
Yep.
And but it's been a couple of times now. I think we can hold our own. Yet we still do.
Yep.
Miss our
In the
third.
absence of Abe.
Yes, we do.
That should be a movie name. In the absence of Abraham. Whoa.
Like one of those teen drama ones.
Yeah. Or Abraham dies in some drunk driving accident, and now we have to move on without him.
Write the script.
And called In the Absence of Abraham.
We could have it more like or biographical, where we're interviewing all the people that he's impacted and stuff like that, or that have impacted him. And
have you moved on in the absence of Abraham?
Ooh, that's the tagline. IMDb's gonna love it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Abe's not with us. He has to work, so he didn't get to partake in the viewing of this roller coaster ride of a film.
Absolute chaos, start to finish, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that's characteristic of the type of film and the subject matter that this movie tackles. I think if it was to be done in any other way, it would feel ham-fisted.
You think so?
Yeah, and I think it would feel like almost maybe like preachy, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
But I love the style of this film. I love the energy of this film.
Oh, yeah.
I love how they tackle the subject matter of this film, and how they portray themes of, addiction and betrayal and, relationships that are toxic, like whether that be friendships or
relationships,
being with people that you shouldn't be.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Yeah,
it takes, some of the stuff that a lot of people do not want to talk about, puts it on the table and is like, that's your main character.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I expected, I guess something similar to this. A lot of, you had said it was kind of crazy. There's a lot of wild stuff. But I expected a more like lightheart tone to it, or like an undertone of like, yeah, this is a bad situation, but there's hope, or like a more like, I don't know what I expected. Maybe I expected more of like a self-help type movie where it's like, we can get through this, and in some circumstances it is, but in others it's just like,
we're at the bottom of the tunnel.
At the bottom of the tunnel, making all the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And just being in the dumps tone-wise and seeing some of the things we do see is just like, it's kind of, violent in the eyes.
Yeah, it's jarring.
It is. It's very jarring. And it's something that it leaves you immediately in the action. It leaves you like not asking, what's this movie going to be about? It's like, no, this is it.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah, that's why it's included in the list of 1,001 movies you should watch before you die.
Yeah.
And I actually got turned on to this movie by a coworker of mine at my previous job. And the movie that we are going to be talking about today is called Trainspotting. It came out in 1996, and it was written for the screen by John Hoge and it was based off of a novel by author Irvine Welsh, and is directed by Danny Boyle. And this movie stars none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ewan McGregor himself, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I don't know about you, but when I grew up, Ian McGregor was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Like, that's who he was. I watched The Phantom Menace growing up, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, all the prequels. And I was like, man, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi if I've ever seen him. And so seeing him out of that role whenever I got older, I was
those
just like
tan robes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I was like, holy cow, dude. I never would have thought I'd see this guy out of the role of Obi-Wan. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm looking at him now. This is who I know.
Yeah.
Not this absolutely scrawny guy with no hair.
Yeah.
This is who I know.
Yeah. But like I was saying before, my first exposure to this film was through the recommendation of a coworker. And
how did he convince you to watch this? What did he have to tell you, or what did he say?
So what we would do this regularly at work, but
okay.
This is gonna sound bad, but I would bring my laptop on days where my boss wouldn't be there, and he would get his deliveries done real early. We would come back to the office, lock the office up, and put a movie on my laptop and sit there and watch it in the office together. And the reason that all came about is because I was getting really into cinema at the time that I had this job, and I was going through college. And I was telling him about these awesome movies that I was watching, and he was also a little bit of a film buff as well. And we would find ourselves going through the IMDb top 250 list.
Oh.
And we would just sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll and be like, I've seen this movie. That's a great movie. You should watch this. Put this on your list. And this movie happened to come up on the list. And he was like, that movie is freaking wild. You should watch it. And I remember seeing the cover for it and kind of being drawn to it immediately just because of the cover. And then I saw Ian McGregor, and I was like, whoa, Ian McGregor in 96? This is kind of crazy. And then I read the synopsis of the movie, and I was like, that sounds pretty wild, actually. And I remember watching the movie on an illegal movie streaming site in the Merced College library on my laptop. And
you're just sitting there going,
yep. I remember I had like a 2-hour gap in between classes, and I sat there in the library and watched this movie, and the entire time I was just like,
just flabbergasted, jaw to the floor.
Yeah, just the whole time I was just like, holy cow, this movie is crazy. Then I never returned to the movie after that.
Oh, so you've only, up until now, you've watched it once?
Yes. This was my second viewing.
Okay.
But I have to say, like, even whenever I watched that movie, however many years ago, it still never left me. Like, the impact that this movie had on me, I still remember, like, the way that I felt when I first watched it, watching it again, and I was just like, oh, yep, I remember this part. Oh, yeah, I remember this part and how it made me feel. And I never forgot this specific part, and all this other stuff. And
yeah.
It had a big impact on me, and it's been incredibly memorable. And I know why it has this like cult classic acclaim to it, because this movie hits you with a 1-2 punch.
It does.
So.
It definitely does. It's British cinema.
Yeah.
It's the start of it, kind of, or like not the start of it, but one of the major movies that got the ball rolling, right?
Yeah,
and
this movie was incredibly
like controversial?
It was controversial whenever it did come out. There's no lying whenever that is said, but it was also pretty successful in its success at the box office.
Okay, I'm curious. I haven't spoiled myself looking at it yet. I think you might have it.
Yeah,
okay,
if you look at the budget versus the box office returns, this movie is incredibly low budget. Like,
okay,
it's like around what an indie movie now gets financed with.
Wow.
And they did a lot on a small budget and made a huge return based on the budget that they worked with.
Wow.
And even garnered some Oscar nominations because of it. And it's it was around this time when like indie cinema and Miramax started really like setting the bar high for some of these huge studios who were continuing to put out movies that were these blockbuster films. And all of a sudden these indie movies are coming around, and people are wanting to see those more than Godzilla, or the '95 version or something like that. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. And I know that this was your first watch, right?
It was. Yeah, it was. The only experience I had was of you talking about it. I was like, Trainspotting. Like, what could that be about? I don't know. I thought it might have to do something with we do our activities on a train. Or something. I had no clue what to expect other than there's some wild stuff and it has to do with addiction.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was disappointed at all. I was caught off guard, definitely, but in some of the best ways.
All right.
And yet I don't think this is a movie I'll return to, I'm not going to lie. Only because, like, the subject matter is pretty freaking intense.
It's dark, too. Yeah, I could definitely see this being a one and done type thing.
Yeah.
Because if anyone is to ever mention this movie to you, you're going to be like, oh, man, it's going to all come flooding back. And you're going to be like, I remember this and this and this and
yeah.
this.
There are specific things we'll talk about in bro moments that they show that I was just like, I'm looking at this right now.
Yeah.
Like, is this allowed on an R rating? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to dive into those and get I guess my first initial reactions and what yours was too. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
The movie is streaming on Pluto TV for free. So if you use Pluto TV and you want to check it out, stream it over there. And we'll give a little brief synopsis here before we dive in. The movie is about a group of friends who grow up in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they are a bunch of heroin addicts.
Yeah.
And this movie kind of just follows them and their lifestyles and kind of shows you the depths of addiction as well as like the insane highs. And it paints the insane highs to a degree, and then it paints the incredible lows to an even further degree.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a crazy watch. It's not for the faint of heart. So if that's something that you might be a little opposed to watching a movie like that, or might be triggering for you or something, don't watch the movie then.
Yeah.
Like it's got some pretty heavy subject matter, and
Sure.
Again, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. It is rated R, and just know that going in if you haven't watched the movie. And if you have and you want to check it out, or I should say if you want to check it out again, or if you want to check it out, continue listening because we are going to talk about spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
And let us know what you thought of the movie if you get to check it out in the comments below.
Mm-hmm.
And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. I figure maybe if I mention this first, we might get more because I always mention it at the end. And I don't know if people watch all the way to the
When
end.
people are snoozing.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, so subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like 80% of y'all that watch our stuff are not subscribed.
True.
So it helps out. Watch that, and yeah, we'll dive in.
All right.
So we're going to start off with our first category, which is, as always, our favorite scenes. And I'll start us off with the introduction to the film, as well as watching Renton try to quit his heroin use for the first time.
Yes, this is great.
Yeah, and the intro to this movie has become sort of iconic.
Mm.
Like, you immediately get brought into this movie, and, you just hear Iggy Pop's Lust for Life playing in the background. And, if you've ever heard that song, it's got this, like, big driving drum beat, and it's very, like, poppy and jangly and makes you want to get up and run and dance around and stuff and everything. And you hear this, playing in the background, and then all of a sudden we cut to Ian McGregor just sprinting, and he is just running. He's got people chasing him, and while he is running, we hear narration playing over the music, and it's Ian McGregor telling us, choose life, choose a career, choose a family, choose, a big television and an electric tin opener, choose, all this stuff that would, be present in like a normal life or a normal family or something like that.
Almost kind of mundane in that way.
Yeah, and he's basically telling people to like choose the normalcy of things. Choose to go that route rather than what it is that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And but it goes on, and it's a lot more
It's
poetic
long, yeah,
and long than what we're giving it credit for right here. But the whole intro of the movie, I love it, man. I think it sets the tone for the type of energy that the movie is going to have throughout the entirety of the runtime. I think it's like hour 30.
Yeah, it's only an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sets the energy right then and there from the intro. And it also shows us that our characters are dirtbags.
Yes.
The characters that we are going to follow are not people to look up to.
No, not at all. Because it even says, like, choose all this stuff, choose life, choose all this stuff. And then at the very end, he goes, why on earth would I do that? Why on earth would I choose all that stuff?
Yeah. And that actually has one of my favorite quotes in it from The Jump, where he says, I chose not to choose life.
Yeah.
Why would I make any of those choices? Like, you know, I don't have to make any of those choices because I have no reason to. Why would I need a reason whenever I've got heroin?
Yeah.
And we see him on the floor, belt around his arm, and he is just in this, like, rough looking room. Like, there's just holes all over the place, dirt and grime all over the floors, graffiti everywhere, and he is just on the floor, passed out from this hit that he just took. And the intro also gives us like freeze frame cuts of who the people are. So, like, there's one part in the beginning where, you know, that whole monologue is happening and Renton gets hit by a car, and then, like, looks at the person driving the car and, like kind of laughs, and then it freezes on him and it says Renton.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's another one where they're all playing soccer, and there's four of them, and, you know, one of the guys is, like, getting pissed, and then it freezes on him and says sick boy. And then another one whose goalie is Spud, and then another guy who slide tackles somebody, his name is Bigby, you know, and then there's another guy named Tommy, and there's just this whole little group that hang out with one another. Some of them do drugs, and others don't.
Yes.
And I think that part is important to note, because not all of them are doing drugs or doing this specific drug.
Right. Just the majority.
Yeah. And other people are not partaking in that stuff, but still hanging out with them, but not partaking in the same activities that they do. And the whole intro just hits us with, you know, these scenes of just high energy and just chaos. And I like that the energy in the movie starts off this way, because it kind of shows us, like, the intense highs, right? And, like, that feeling whenever, you know, you're, you know, high or something like that. I don't know. I've never done drugs, so can't say. But, you know, I've only heard it described as, like, well, obviously I've heard heroin described as, like, a huge depressant, but it's something that, you know, is super euphoric, and that's the thing that so many addicts look for, is just to get that feeling again for the first time that they got, or they're chasing that high the entire time.
Right.
And that's what the intro sort of feels like. It feels like just super high octane and rambunctious and, you know, just balls to the wall action.
Yeah.
Like, right from the jump. And then from there, the movie sort of picks up, and it picks up where Renton was left off on the floor. He gets up, and there are all of his friends that are there with him, some of them also partaking in the activities that he does. But and then others just kind of sitting there watching. And we get Renton walking over to the dealer who makes this stuff and sells it to him, and tells him, basically, you know, I'm off the skag.
I'm off the junk.
I'm off the junk for good. Like, this is it for me. I'm going to quit. And then the narration that plays throughout the majority of this film as well sort of tells us why he's saying that he's off. And it's just because his friend Sick Boy said that he could do it if he wanted to.
Yeah, and he's trying to, like, one-up him.
Yeah.
Or make it seem like his torture is like, somewhat less than.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we get the next scene, which I love here, that I kind of couple together, where Renton tries to stop using for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love just this whole, like shopping list of things that he has, and, like, this whole little routine that he has set before him. because it feels like he's done it before. And he's like, you know, if you're ever wanting to stop, you have to go through the withdrawals and all this stuff. And if that's the case, you're going to need to do this. So we immediately get the feel that, like, this has happened before and it hasn't worked, or it's gotten him back to the place where he was previously. And we see, you know, Renton, like, nailing the door shut with boards. He went and got, like, tons of groceries and inappropriate magazines and ice cream, and, like, sets up, like, 3 buckets, one for pee, poop, and vomit, and, like, you know, all this other stuff, and, like, you know, sets up his TV and all that stuff so that way he can, you know, go through his withdrawal separate from anything, and so that way, you know, he doesn't need to try to, you know, get out or anything like that. He has everything that he needs right here in his little apartment.
Right.
And then, like, after all of this is getting set up, we hear the narration saying, but, you know, before I do any of this, it's also important that you do one more hit before you decide that you want to quit.
Yeah.
So it's like a parting goodbye.
Yeah.
Right? And so whenever he's saying that, it cuts to, like, the door that had all these boards nailed on it and stuff like that, now chopped down and pulled off the wall. And he's immediately on a payphone talking to a guy and being like, hey, do you got some stuff? Like, I'll pay you premium for it and all this stuff. Just need to get a fix. And he goes to this guy who is, like, living in this, like, shabby apartment. Like, there's no furniture, just a mattress on the floor. He's standing there, and it cuts to Renton looking at the guy, and he goes, what the hell is this? And he's got some like broken up, like, pills. And we come to find out that they're suppositories. And if he wants them to work, if Renton wants to achieve this high that he's looking for before he decides that he's going to get off heroin, that he needs to put them up his butt.
Because they're slow release.
Yeah, and they have to, like, melt, basically, for him in order to achieve what he's wanting.
Right.
So we watch Renton, like, dig around in his pants trying to put him up his butt so that way he can achieve what he's wanting and then go back home.
Gosh.
And that leads into my next favorite scene.
This is I would call it a favorite scene as well, just because of how artistic they decide to take it.
Yeah.
The narration starts up again, and he's starting to say, like, you know, when you're on heroin, one of the side effects is you get really constipated, along with other things that he goes on and talks about. And he's like, now that I'm off of it, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I really gotta go. So he goes into this absolute trash. It says the worst toilet in Scotland, and it is awful, absolutely awful. There's water dripping. It looks like there's just feces all over the floor. He goes to the toilet. I don't even think there's a flushing mechanic.
There's not even, like, a lid.
There's no lid.
Like,
yeah, it's just
yeah,
it's a cesspit.
Yeah,
is what it is.
There's no lid. There's just poop and toilet paper and anything you can imagine just all over this thing.
Yeah. And this is one of those scenes where I'm like, am I really watching this right now?
This is gross.
Because he pulls his pants down, he does this business, and then he realizes the suppositories have not absorbed or melted yet. I got to dig in here and find them so I can use them. And I was like, oh, no. Because he puts his hand in, and you see, like, just
brown getting all over his hands and stuff,
and he's all the time he's going
yeah,
you know, for good reason. And then it's where it starts to get like he's going in like his whole hand, he's got both hands and it's splashing, and then there's a moment where he sticks his head in, and he's like his whole body goes into the toilet. Like, what the heck is happening? And then now all of a sudden he's like underwater in this darkly lit, looks like an oceanscape. He swims all the way down, and there's this 2 bright, shining suppositories down there. He grabs them, and then he finally makes his way out of the toilet. And I was just so interested at what was happening. Yeah. Because I thought to myself, I was like, okay, he's going to find them. They're going to be covered. It's going to be nasty. But it went away I was not expecting. Yeah. He just dives into the toilet. And I think it's supposed to be more artistic, more like metaphorical, right? Yeah. Rather than literal.
I would think so.
Because he does come out of the toilet soaking wet.
Yeah.
Now, is that just him like, what? How are we supposed to interpret that?
I have no clue.
I just kind of let it go. I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
but it's just the depths you go for.
Yeah, and that's why that scene is there.
Yeah,
it's there to show like the length that an addict will go to make sure that they secure that last high.
it might even be somewhat of a foreshadow / metaphor because he is literally at rock bottom.
Yeah,
Like he is swimming as fast as he can towards the rock bottom.
yeah,
And that's eventually where this. I mean, you can maybe even make the argument that he's there now.
mm-hmm.
But it might be a metaphor for that. Like he is willingly swimming down,
Yeah,
choosing to not choose life. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I just thought about that now.
Yeah.
That might be a cool way to interpret that.
I like it. Yeah, and I also just love the way that it's shot.
Yeah,
Like I'm
very
curious.
dreamlike.
Yeah, and also like the way that they show him going in the toilet.
I think.
Like,
Okay, I
I'm-
was thinking about how they did that, and I think it's just like the toilet cut in half.
Okay. And he's like sliding down something.
I think so.
It has to be, but the way that they shoot it,
It looks like
he's like making his way in, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Dude,
Yeah.
he's straight up climbing into this thing like he's, can fit down in there.
Yeah, I thought for sure you'd be swimming in the ocean and then you just see logs, little Snicker bars in there.
Yeah,
They didn't go that far with it.
yeah,
which I was
but
glad
yeah, I love this whole scene as well. It's a huge bro moment. It's disgusting. It's dirty, but it's also kind of crucial to show that this guy is desperate.
Yep.
And he will do anything he can to make sure that that last hit is going to be there.
Yes.
And it's wild. From
Definitely
there,
wild.
my next favorite scene is not a little. It's pretty far ways into the movie, but it's whenever Renton ODs for the first time.
Yes, this is another one of those very artistic styled scenes.
Yes, and I guess to kind of give a little bit of context to how we get here, there are tons of scenes where, we find out that another one of the complications to withdrawing or coming off of heroin is that you get extremely
Your libido.
yeah, your libido goes through the roof.
Yeah,
There you
you're
go.
like ready
yeah
for action.
yeah, and there's points where
All
all the characters are going home with people and partaking in what Indiana Jones calls nocturnal activities. and there's like things that happen in the morning that that alter things for characters and their relationships and all this other stuff.
Right.
And eventually we get to a point to where Renton, we see the context behind the opening scene where him and his buddies are all stealing.
Yeah.
And they are, robbing from like retirement communities.
Taking the
and like taking their
TV.
TVs and like
Dude.
doing anything they can to like whip up money to buy drugs.
Yeah.
And we get the context behind the intro scene whenever he's getting, chased. And we find out that he actually does get caught and gets put on trial, basically, for
him and Spud.
Yeah, him and Spud get put on trial for theft. And Spud goes away to jail for a couple of years while Renton gets off scot-free.
Yep.
And he
because he's in that rehab program.
Yeah, because he said that he was in a rehab program, the judge lets him go on the stipulation that he continues in the rehab program.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole scene actually has another one of my favorite quotes where the judge releases him and says like, you can go on the terms that you continue in your rehab program and stop using. And he goes, "Thank you, Your Honor. With God's help, I'll be able to conquer this terrible affliction."
Yeah, the judge is like,
yeah, and like you immediately know like this guy has no plans on stopping.
no.
And afterwards his family gets together and his friends, they all go to a pub, they celebrate. And I think like Renton almost kind of deals with like almost like survivor's guilt a little bit, where he's like, it should have been me that was going to prison. Spud shouldn't be in there. I feel bad. And what does he do to decide to deal with these feelings? He goes and gets high.
Gotta get a hit.
Yeah, and he goes back to the dealer who they call the Mother Superior.
Yeah, and he straight up is like acting like he's a
Like a
server.
restaurant,
At a
yeah.
restaurant. He's like, 5-course meal today? He's like, nope, I want the goods.
Yeah, and he was like, would you like some garlic bread first, sir? And he goes, no, I'll just go straight to the intravenous injection of hard drugs, please.
Yeah.
like brings it out on like a napkin. Like
Yeah.
it's like, like a waiter. And, one of the things that I really like about this scene is whenever we see this syringe, Renton looks at it a little bit like not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he looks at it that way because he knows what he can handle.
Is it too much, do you think?
And I think he notices that it's a bit too much.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't really quite understand. I was like, okay, is the dude trying to poison him?
Yeah, and I think that Renton notices that it's a lot, like way too much than what he's used to. But then I started thinking about like from the aspect of an addict and that not being a concern, because your only concern would be that it be too little.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
it wouldn't be enough.
It wouldn't be enough and you wouldn't get the feeling that you're looking for. And you'd rather it be more than too less, right? Or not enough.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And regardless, Renton decides to use all of it. And as soon as he does, this is like one of the shots I think about so often when I think about this movie.
Yeah.
Is, Renton decides to shoot, and whenever he does, he kind of falls back onto this red rug. And as he does, the red rug just kind of like collapses into the floor, and we see Renton kind of sink into the floor. And the rug kind of sinks in with him, and then we get this camera shot where it looks like we're like in a grave, almost covered by this red rug on the sides. And then the dealer comes by and he says, "Oh, you don't look too good. I'm gonna call a taxi."
Yeah.
And calls a taxi and basically gets Renton out of the place where they all do drugs, brings him out into the street. And I love the double take that they kind of make us do, where like they show the ambulance,
And it's not.
and it's it's going, and we think like, oh man, these people are gonna go save Renton, but that ambulance just goes
Drives
past him, and then all of a sudden a taxi pulls up, and he just kind of loads him into a taxi, and
Gives him his money back too?
Yeah, like puts it in his pocket.
Is that just like, I feel bad for you? Or
I don't know, possibly.
Or it's like,
or money for the taxi ride or something.
I don't
I'm not
know.
sure. But meanwhile, while that's all playing out, "Perfect Day" by Lou Reed is playing throughout this entire scene, and I think it's like the perfect use of this song. Like, I don't know what it is about like a scene or something in a movie where like the worst possible circumstances are happening, and playing a song that juxtaposes it.
It's like, oh,
Like, yeah, like you're straight up watching someone basically on their way to death, and the entire time it's like, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you.
yeah,
it's
it's ironic.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love the use of the song and everything about this scene. But Renton gets loaded into this taxi, and we get shots of Renton's POV as everything's going on, and we know that it's Renton's perspective because we see just these red rug walls like on the sides of his of the camera. So then we're put in a perspective of like, okay, this is what Renton is seeing. And it even shows us like him getting drug out of the taxi driver like knowing somehow that there's money on him, which I found kind of a bro moment as well, because then that means like
It's happened.
this happens so often that he just knows there's money somewhere.
Yeah.
I just need to like check in all of his pockets and then go.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah, and then eventually people find Renton's OD'd body out in the on the entrance of this hospital. They bring him in, put him on a gurney, and I even love like whenever they're giving him a shot to kind of bring him out of it, like the red walls of the rug get replaced with the nurse's arms over his head, and then we finally see Renton come back to, and
he's got,
he's just like blue lipped, like basically was almost dead.
Yeah.
And finally comes back to, and his parents pick him up, like right after they just had this whole trial and everything, and he promised to go back to rehab and all this stuff.
Lied.
And he's just sitting in between them, and they're just silent and just kind of like can't even say a word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't know, man. It's just a great scene. It's got horrible context and horrible subject matter, but the way that it's shot and the way that that everything happens throughout this entire scene, I'm just like, this is good though. Like, it's done in such an artistic way, like you were saying, or like I can't help but appreciate it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to another scene that had me feeling the exact same way, which is when the mom and dad decide to have him quit cold turkey for the last time. They're gonna take care of it. They're gonna do it, and they lock him in that. I guess it's his old room or something. Mm-hmm. And the whole scene that happens. I mean, you see this with. I mean, I think it's common knowledge that like once you quit cold turkey, you get all these symptoms, all these side effects that really are just the worst thing to go through. Mm-hmm. And we kind of see Renton go through them all. He's too ill to get up and do stuff. But he's, or what was that quote where he's like, I literally am in limbo. Yeah. Like I can't sleep, but I can't not sleep. You know what I mean? Like, or I can't live, but I can't sleep. Yeah. And he's going through all that, and he's kind of reliving, like as he's like weaning off of the drugs, he's reliving or like thinking about the stuff that he's trying to repress. Yep. Whether it be like his really abusive relationships with his friends like Begbie, or with the situation that happened with Dawn the baby. Yep. And how that comes back to haunt him. Even like his feelings with Spud, where like he sees visions of Spud in a ball and chain, hitting the door. He sees Tommy have like lesions on his face and, kind of looking already drugged out or addicted. Yeah. And I think it's some of that guilt is showing through. A lot of it is, I think, his suppressed emotions that he just used or he hid down with the drug. Yeah. Yeah. It's all of his demons coming up, and he's having to face them head on. And it's wild. Yeah. He's shaking in his bed. He's underneath the bed, and all of a sudden you see freaking Begbie is there, and he's like, if you don't sweat all that out of your system, I'm going to come back and kick it out of you. Yeah. And then he goes away. It's just a wild trip. Yeah. And it's not the most, unique, because I've seen this happen several times where they're quitting cold turkey and they're hallucinating and all that stuff. But it was just cool to see a little deeper of the character. Yeah. Which I liked. Yeah, that's actually my last favorite scene here as well. Okay. Yeah, and I always get reminded of the baby on the ceiling, because there's like don't do it. Yeah, he's twisting its head like Chucky. And this was one of those scenes that it just stuck with me. Yeah, I don't know why. Like I remember watching it for the first time, and I was just like, that is disturbing. Yeah. Like seeing this baby on the ceiling and it turning its head like it's in The Exorcist, but you see what it looked like when it died, and him sort of like feeling the guilt and finally bringing up all those feelings he had that he should have been feeling whenever Dawn did pass away, but he decided to get high instead. Like all that stuff is now coming up, and he's just in anguish, like screaming at the ceiling. And I was also going to say, anytime I ever listen to this rapper named Slow Tie, he has a song called Inglorious, where he mentions, he name drops tons of movies and references to films in his songs. But he has a bar in this song where he says, Trainspotting, I got babies on my ceiling. Oh, really? And anytime I listen to this song, I think about that scene, and I'm like, oh crap! You're like, oh yeah, forget all about that. I'm looking at the scene right now, and it's pretty freaking nightmare material. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but it is inevitably what gets his life straight. He does get off. He does get a job. He's doing it for himself. He gets an apartment. Yeah. I was wondering how you felt about that last like heist with Begbie and with basically all of them except obviously Tommy. Mm-hmm. One thing before we move on to that. Okay. One of the things I also that I really, really liked about that whole coming down scene was like this house music that's playing throughout the entire time. And it's just like
driving the tension and anxiety throughout this whole thing, because we just get this constant like pulsating beat like behind everything, and while everything's going on you just hear this like and like, you know, you hear this bass coming in and all this stuff, and like it doesn't feel like it should work, but it does. And like you're watching all this crazy stuff happen on screen while this, you know, pulsating music is behind you that, you know, usually you'd be in a club just kind of like dancing and losing your mind to and all this stuff. But in this aspect, it's kind of like, it makes me like kind of anxious because it's just not stopping. And then I'm seeing all this stuff combined with that, like it's just driving this anxiety even harder. And that's one of the things I really appreciate with that scene as well.
Definitely successful in that.
But in regards to sort of the end of the movie, when we find out that these guys have the opportunity to make some money through a drug deal, Renton is now clean, right?
Yes.
And we come to find out that Tommy, who, you know, was previously clean, decided that he wanted to try heroin for the first time, eventually gets addicted. We even find out he gets HIV from doing heroin, and then dies from toxoplasmosis.
Yep, that's what they say.
Right. And he eventually dies, and because of his death, they now find some sort of connect where I guess he was talking to people or something like that were originally going to do some sort of drug deal with him in the middle of it, but now since he's gone, Begbie and all these other people are going to take his place.
Yeah.
And
freaking Begbie, dude.
We basically find out that like there is like, I forget how much, like 2 pounds or 2 kilos.
I can't remember. They put it on the scale and it's 95 point. I don't know if it was ounces, grams, or whatever.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's like 2 packs.
Big old bags.
Yeah.
But we basically get the motivation that these guys can make a lot of money if they do this deal. And we watch this deal go down with this guy. He buys these 2 bags for 16,000 pounds, split amongst 4 of them, which means all of them get $4,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know about you. I have a ton of bro moments here.
I do too.
But, I mean, we can get to them if we want to right now.
Is that then? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying in the context of like the storyline.
Up to you.
There's tons of bro moments that happen here for me, but like we find out that Renton is low key thinking about stealing all the money and just like leaving them and betraying them.
Yeah.
And eventually that's what happens. Like that is eventually what Renton decides to do. They all, you know, party and drink and all this stuff and get in fights and everything, and then the night of, everyone is asleep, drunk, not knowing what's going on. Begbie's clutching that bag while he's sleeping, and Renton just snatches it from him. Spud sees him leave with
Just
the bag,
says no,
says nothing, don't do it, and Renton just takes off.
Yep.
And the film ends with Renton kind of doing a different rendition of his opening monologue, where he says like, I'm a bad person, I made a lot of bad choices and all this stuff, but I'm going to choose life now. I'm going to choose the family. I'm going to choose the big television and the electric tin opener and having a mortgage and going golfing and all this stuff. I'm going to choose all of this stuff now because I have this money and a different, like, you know, starting point now for life. And the movie ends. And it kind of ends a little bit ambiguously.
It does, yeah. Does he spend the money on good? Does he spend it on more drugs?
Yeah.
Who knows? I guess that's where the sequel will answer that.
Probably takes place.
Who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, that's Trainspotting. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. There's definitely a lot of stuff we'll be hitting in bro moments that we didn't talk about specifically in favorite scenes. But before we get to the bro moments, let's talk about some best quotes.
Okay, this should be quick. There's a lot of it, and a lot of it also was in like that very heavy Scottish accent that sometimes it just kind of like went over my head. I was like, what did you just say? Not sure.
This is a movie you definitely need subtitles on for.
If you don't have it, it's tough. My first one though is when the mom to Don It's absurd, but she's her taking. I don't know if it's her first one or if it's just a hit, and they one of the quotes I guess is also one of my favorites when they explain a hit as being like 1,000 times better than your best orgasm ever.
Yeah.
And then even that's not good enough, but that's where you should take your mind.
Yeah.
That's why we do it for the pleasure and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So she does it, and one of the quotes that she says is like,
she's like, that's better than any hot beef injection.
yeah, she said that beats any meat injection. That beats any of the best genitals I've had.
Yeah, dude.
And I was like, are
Bro,
you kidding me?
Wild.
Meat
And
injection.
like even while that's happening too, you see the baby like crawling around like in the spot.
Definitely
And you're like,
foreshadowing. It's
oh, are you serious, dude? You're doing this in front of your kid?
It is tough to
Like,
see that.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it was my first one. I laughed super hard.
Yeah. Another one that I laughed at was whenever Tommy tries to bring the guys out on a hike, and he's like, let's go hike that mountain over there.
And they're like,
why? And he's like, don't you want to feel Scottish? Doesn't it feel great to be Scottish?
And then he's
And
like,
then, Renton is like, no,
it sucks.
It's crap being Scottish. We're the lowest of the low. Yeah. And like, he goes on this whole rant about how like the British colonized us, and like our colonizers don't even have any culture, like, and all this stuff. And one of my favorite quotes was it's crap being Scottish. We're the lowest of the low.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have much else. Do you have anything that I'm forgetting?
The only one that I have that we didn't talk about is another scene whenever they're celebrating that they did that job, and they're at the club hanging out and all this stuff. And Renton's narration says, 1,000 years from now, there will be no guys and no girls, just wankos. Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was laughing at that quote specifically too.
Yeah. Oh, what about the quote where they're like, it's that scene where Renton is trying to find a girl to take home, and the other guys are talking about their girls and how they're not getting any. And the girls are in the bathroom talking about like, yeah, I'm with Holden and I really don't want to, but it's real funny watching him squirm in his pants and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other guys are like, I forgot her birthday, and I got these tickets for the same day, and she's gonna make me choose between them.
Yeah.
But I already bought the ticket.
Yeah.
Like it's like just some of the worst relationships possible.
Yeah.
And the girls come back from the restroom, and they're like, "What are you guys talking about?"
They go, football.
And they ask her, "What are you talking about?"
Shopping.
It's so funny, man. I died laughing when they said that.
Yeah. Super funny.
Yeah.
If that's it for the best quotes, then let's move into bro moments.
Yes, I've got quite a few, man.
My first one is the whole like BB gun scene.
Shooting the dog.
Shooting the dog and making it attack that skinhead.
Yep.
I thought that was wild.
It was funny. I kind of just randomly in place there.
Yeah.
My first one is the scene when they are all drunk and they sleep with the women, and they wake up the next morning, and what's one of the dudes who
Spud.
Spud
He goes,
poops in the bed, and he gets up. They're all like I guess they're meeting the family.
Yeah, they're like having breakfast.
What a random situation.
Yeah.
And he's got the soiled
sheets with them. He brought them with them.
I know.
To breakfast. That's wild.
And the mom comes up. She's like, "Oh, let me take those all clean." And he's like, "No, I'll do this. This is my mess. Don't worry about it." And they fight over him, and he like one pulls, and the poop just flings.
Catapults it, dude. All over.
Dude,
Gotta
be the worst.
Yeah, seriously. Another one for me, I think a little before that happens, when Begbie throws the glass.
Yeah.
After he talks about like, oh, I beat this guy up because he was challenging me in pool, and he, throws the glass and starts this whole big bar fight. And then another bro is when we find out the real reason as to why he fought that guy, and Tommy spills the beans.
It was just,
and he's like, it cuts to where he's like working out.
Yeah.
And Tommy is like, yeah, we were playing pool, and I was doing so much better than him, and I decided to like, try to miss a shot, but I made it on accident. And Begbie was getting so pissed that like he was just looking to take his frustration out on somebody, and he found some guy that like, sneezed or did something when he was about to take a shot to where he was like, oh, that's it. That's what set me off. And that's why I had to fight the guy.
Yeah, stupid.
And while that's all being told to us, Renton is going through his like personal video collection.
Yeah.
And he finds this like intimate tape between Tommy and his girlfriend.
Yeah, and he
steals it.
Oh.
And then like swaps it for like
It's a soccer game or
soccer
something.
game. Yeah, he like swaps the cases and takes it home. And
It just is like,
him and Sick Boy sit there and watch it on their own TV. Like it's
dirty.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. That sucks.
Yeah.
Also, finding out whenever Tommy and his girl come back to the house and they
Put it on. I want to see.
yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, put it on, and then he realizes like, oh, I must have returned it.
Yeah.
Like I must have returned the tape or something like that. And now his girl's freaking out, thinking the people at the video store saw us, being intimate with one another and all this crap. And meanwhile, that's not the case at all. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
What about learning that the girl that Renton slept with was a minor?
Yeah.
Gotta
Dude.
be rough, right?
Insane. Even crazier when she blackmails him.
Yeah.
And she's like, if you don't see me again, I'm going to tell everybody. Like,
I would call the cops.
Yeah. I was like, dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. She's
Manipulator.
manipulative.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That was definitely a wild time.
Yeah. From there, for me, I mean, the baby dying
Yeah, the baby dying
was crazy. I mean, they're all, in the house doing drugs, and then we just hear Allison just, like, screaming bloody murder, almost. And we get this, like, slow reveal of this dead baby in a crib.
Yeah.
Which
That was rough.
it had to have died either from, like, dehydration or suffocation or something like that, but the baby died. And seeing that baby and that, like, slow zoom that they do
And
around
how it looks
and
kind
how-
of
even coming to find out that, like, it's believed that Sick Boy was the father
yeah.
because he's the only one that's showing any emotion in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then her being like, Renton, cook me up a shot. I need a hit.
Like
Like,
to deal with the trauma.
To deal with the trauma of her baby now dying. She's like, okay, I need to get high.
Yeah.
It's like, are you serious, dude? That's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely probably the biggest bro moment.
Yeah. Huge. Obviously, Tommy dying
Yeah.
is a big one, which we mentioned.
The kitten. Bro moment that the kitten was still fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah, that shot of that like small little cat in
It seems
his
so-
apartment, like it seems so innocent, and then it
Yeah.
pans out and you see Tommy's feet, and you're just like, oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like now this guy's dead because of everything that's going on.
His choices, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Another one for me was whenever they do that job and they get the money, and Begbie starts fighting that guy when he
Yeah.
bumps into him with the beer.
The guy's like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
Yeah, and he's like, "Yo, it's my bad. I'll buy you a new round." Even he says, and he like starts just like trying to go crazy on this guy, and like eventually like pulls out a knife. He like cuts Spud's hand open and all this stuff. That whole scene was a bro moment for me too.
Yeah. Him saying, "Give me a cigarette."
Yeah,
I was like, "Is this guy? What
like
is
intimidation tactic or
yeah,
something?"
It's
Yeah.
horrible. I hated it.
Yeah,
The scene where he takes the money but then leaves the money for Spud.
For Spud, yeah,
I like that a lot too.
yeah. That's about it for me.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
The end.
Well, if that's it, then let's move into some facts with the bros.
Okay, yeah. I know you've got the budget, which
Yes.
guys, is it gonna blow my mind?
I don't know. It might. I was kind of amazed with the budget that they worked with.
Yeah. Well, you said it's small, so let's hear how
Yeah.
small it was.
So it worked on a budget of 1.5 million pounds
oh,
because it was filmed in the UK.
right.
But in the U.S. box office gross made $16.4 million.
Wow.
And then worldwide made $16.7 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So this movie did incredibly well for itself. I was kind of surprised by that. And then I was also surprised to see that this movie was Oscar nominated.
Was it?
Yeah, for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Oh, from a book.
Yeah, it didn't win that nomination, but just the fact that it was nominated is pretty crazy.
Ah, nice. Wow.
You got any facts over there?
I do, yes. So I was confused over the title, and when I read this in the IMDb thing, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting," because there has been a lot of confusion over the film's title. None of them None of that particular activity actually takes place in the film of actually like train spotting.
Yeah, or train watching.
Right.
That.
So Irvine Welsh has since gone on record to explain the title, stating that it started out as a euphemism for taking drugs, which were often done at a train station, but the term gradually evolved to be described an obsessive hobby. And that is not understood by people who do not practice it. And that's kind of the perspective the film takes on the drug of heroin. I.e. something that only the people who indulge in that pastime truly understand. Yep. To them, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because you think to yourself, like, why would you do that? It's completely ruining your life. I have no understanding of why you choose that.
Yep.
And yet the people who do partake in it are like, I get it.
This is why.
Similar to the hobby of train spotting.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, it answered one of my questions.
Yeah. I have one actually that kind of blew my mind in regards to Ian McGregor's preparation for the role. And I guess he would read books about crack and heroin in order to prepare for the role, but it would also go to this Calton Athletic Recovery Group, is what it's called. And it's an organization for recovering heroin addicts.
Oh.
And whenever he went there, he was taught how to cook up heroin with the spoon using glucose powder from the people there. And he even considered injecting heroin himself to better understand his character, but eventually decided against it.
Yeah, probably the better the better decision.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, he actually thought about it? That's freaking crazy.
That's kind of like, I'm gonna method act my way through it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna become Joker.
Yeah.
And do all that stuff.
Wild.
Interesting enough, if you take a look at the poster or even the DVD picture, it's missing one person, which is Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
His actual name is Kevin McKidd, who, if you don't know, is Owen from Grey's Anatomy, is where I know him from.
Yeah.
He's missing during the photo shoot for the promos because he was on a holiday, and it was and is the only cast member to not be on the pictures.
Yep.
Which is crazy. He's like, I was on holiday, I missed it.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, you're not on it.
Yeah, seriously. Another one that I thought was pretty wild, in regards to the worst toilet in Scotland scene.
Yes.
Although it may
It
look
was actual crap.
Yeah. No, this isn't Jarhead.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Although it may look nasty, all the stuff that was made to look like feces and everything was actually chocolate.
Oh. Okay.
And apparently it smelled really good. Like in there, while it may have looked nasty, it smelled great.
Okay. It did too, because when you see his hand, there's like a little chocolate streak.
Yeah.
And it does kind of look
Yeah.
like melted chocolate.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, you don't want to like absolutely traumatize your actor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, stick your hand in this feces-filled toilet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, filthy. Another one I found pretty crazy, actually, is that Ian McGregor lost 26 pounds in order to play the role.
That is true.
And it took him only 2 months to reach his target size, and apparently he achieved this by, quote, grilling everything and drinking wine and gin instead of beer.
Yeah. Easy ways to cut on calories.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. So the Kelly MacDonald, who is the underage lady, she is supposedly 14 in the movie, but she was actually 19 turning 20.
Oh, wow.
So she was playing above her age, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy, too, to even find out that whenever I was watching this movie again, I was like, man, dude, she sounds so familiar. And I went and looked at the cast, and she'd go on to voice the lead in Brave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no wonder she sounds so familiar. I keep hearing, if you could choose your fate, all that stuff. I'm like, that's her, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Another one that I thought was pretty wild, actually, in regards to the screenwriter who adapted this for the film. John Hoge was a doctor and had to frequently deal with heroin addicts.
Oh.
And some of his experiences had been worked into the script. One such example is that junkies were stealing a television set from an old folks home that he actually had to deal with.
Oh, wow.
And that, however, made it into the script.
Yeah.
And the last one that I have, actually, is in regards to the scene whenever Renton is sinking into the floor. The way that was done was the crew built this platform, and it was built under a trapdoor. So Ian would then lay down on the trap door, and then it would open up, and they would then lower him on this platform.
Oh, that's how they did it.
Yeah, into the pit, and that rug would then like kind of sink down with them. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Last one I have, Daniel Craig was considered for Begbie.
Really?
Yeah.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig is
007 himself.
Yeah.
That would have been wild.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah,
I don't immediately think 007. I think of
Benoit Blanc.
yeah, Benoit Blanc. That's who I think.
That would have been pretty wild.
Yeah.
As trash of a character as Begbie is, I feel like the guy that plays him though is just perfect for
Yeah.
it. Look,
I hate him more and more. The more he's on screen, the more I hate him.
Yeah.
But it is perfect.
Yeah. Well, if that's it for facts,
That's it.
let's talk about what didn't work.
Yeah. I guess I'll start, and I think you might have a similar. Well, maybe. I think I kind of craved a little bit more structure.
Yeah. This movie definitely
It's kind
doesn't
of
have much of a plot.
no, not much. It's kind of like we're just watching scenes that are, randomly
Loosely-
stitched together. Yeah, loosely stitched together.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that first half is kind of just like we're getting introduced to all these people, and there's not really much driving the story forward other than like random event. Here it is, and it's kind of just like whoa, and it left me a little bit like I wish there was like something I can really get engaged with here and like really focus on that'll keep me questioning what's next. How is this going to continue? What's the next decision? It was more of just like watch this person in this situation,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, I agree in that aspect. I definitely felt that whenever I was watching it again. And I've seen that that's like actually a pretty big criticism with the movie in general, is that there's just like no motivation for the characters to kind of do anything other than to like be presented with these random scenes and then deal with what goes on in those random scenes. There's
Right.
no actual plot there.
yeah.
And that's really the only thing that I could think of that didn't work for me here.
Yeah, just more connective tissue. I
Mhm.
think would have been good. I would have liked to see more of their like scam activities. We do
Yeah.
get like the smallest of montages where they do steal that TV and they do like get caught by the cops. But I would have liked to have seen them like plot something together and then actually watch them do a scene of it. And I think that might have been cool.
Yeah.
We don't really get much of the relation or like the character motivations of the side characters as well. Like, I think one of the coolest things about the ending was that it really got me to feel more heart and emotion towards some of the characters, like Spud.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really felt terrible for him. Like, I really felt like he was the one who had like the worst situation there.
Yeah.
And it brought to life more of that, and I wish we could have got more of that throughout the film rather than it just being at the end.
Yeah.
Would have got me to care more about the characters.
Yeah. I agree. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, let's move into what did work.
Surprisingly funny.
Yeah. I think that this movie is a very dark comedy.
Yes.
And I think the writing works
Yeah.
quite a bit.
The writing is
actually.
pretty. Yeah, it's smart.
I think it's like you said, smart. I think it's really
Sharp.
solid and like it tackles the topics of addiction and drugs in a light where it doesn't make light of the subject.
Yeah.
And it shows you the depravity of everything, and it does it in a way where it's not glorifying the subject matter. It is showing you this is a horrible life.
Yeah.
And I like that the writing takes it in a way where it doesn't shy away from things. It's going to show you some stuff that's going to upset you, but that is that world.
Oh, yeah.
That is the world of addiction and drug use.
Yeah. I can see this movie being extremely relatable,
Mhm.
not only to those who are struggling through addiction, but also those around them who are affected by that. Like,
Mhm.
I imagine the parents seeing kind of how they react, where the mom is like, you're such a pain in the freaking butt at every moment. Every decision you make is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to love you through it.
Yep.
And they even take it into their own hands. I think it could be extremely, that's why it's like, watch it on your own risk.
Yeah.
Because if this is something that you struggle with, it might be more emotion than you're willing to take on.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a good thing. It's a good thing to see, you know, not it being demonized the whole time, and actually showing certain ways you can overcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think the narration throughout the film really works here.
I do like that.
It reminds me of Goodfellas in that way.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it almost takes on like its own character. And I like that it's ever present throughout the movie and that it just doesn't happen like here and there throughout the film to kind of get us from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It's like the narration throughout the film actually serves a purpose. And, you know, again, has enough substance to where it could fully be its own character, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, I also have to say, I think the set design here is great.
Yeah, it really makes you feel grimy.
It's awesome. And, like,
dirty.
something that always kind of blew my mind, I had to really think about this whenever I watched the movie Kids. Is that a movie you've ever seen?
No, I remember you talking about this, and it's a movie I think that might be on YouTube. Right?
Yeah, I watched it. I watched the full movie on YouTube, but it was like a re-upload. And
the plot that you told us really reminds me of this movie in terms
crazy.
of just like,
and it's kind of in the same vein because it even came out in '95.
oh wow, okay,
So there was like I think like a whole string of just like, you know, edgy quote unquote movies that were coming out that were just, you know, depicting like just the real trash, like actual life as it's being lived and all this stuff, and like this is really going on, right? When I watched Kids for the first time, I remember seeing certain scenes and looking at like the way that things were shot and how they used like the areas that they were shooting, and I was watching it and I was like, man, that the set design for a film like this is actually insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think about it in a way where like this had to be set up. Somebody had to like go in here and be like, okay, we're gonna do this to the walls to make them look like dirty and grimy and nasty. We're gonna put used toilet paper all over the bathroom, spray brown and black gunk all over the walls and on the stall, and make the water in the toilet look gray. Like it's crazy looking. And I'm like, man, somebody actually had to create this stuff, and that's kind of cool. Like,
it is.
The set design is like something to kind of behold, because I'm like, this didn't just naturally happen. No. Somebody had to create this stuff.
It's definitely
wild
a talent, for sure.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, and other thing I appreciate is that the tone is incredibly consistent. No matter how grimy it gets, no matter how dark and deep it gets, it's incredibly unapologetically consistent throughout, and I think it's good. Mm-hmm. I think if it would to have leaned more towards the lighthearted or even more towards the comedy, I think, like you were saying, it could have been like less of an emotional impact and like more of a cartoonish in that way, rather than it being a film that you can really latch onto and have it impact you.
Yeah. I also have to say, I think the costume design here is great as well.
Yeah, I like freaking Ian McGregor's like tiny
like
shirt,
baby tee. Yeah, like it's like crop top that he's wearing. Yeah, and like these like huge like tiny little sleeves, and I even love like his like outfit that he goes to court in, where like he's like wearing like a suit, like a shirt, a tie, a jacket, and like slacks, but then
he's
like
got the
has like
Adidas.
Adidas on.
He's got the freaking Adidas Sambas on. Right?
Yeah, and I'm like, low-key, that's kind of a fit. Like, it looks kind of good.
It does. It does.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love this the costume design aspect of the film too. Like, these guys just don't care about what it is that they're wearing, because that's not what's on their mind. Like, they're throwing together outfits that make no sense. They're wearing, sweaters with blazers over them and pinstriped pants with like, riding boots like pulled up to their calf and all this stuff. And I'm like, it looks insane, but low-key, you guys are pulling it off a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I actually do agree.
Yeah. Other than that, I think cinematography really works in this film. I love the artistic, stylistic choices that happen throughout the movie from a camera perspective.
Yeah.
And also the music choices. I think the music chosen throughout this movie is great. Like, I love hearing Iggy Pop and Lou Reed.
I know. Was that girl called him Ziggy Pop or something?
Yeah.
The
I
world's
love
changing.
Yeah, I love hearing, just the soundtrack choices that are made throughout this movie, and
Right.
they really serve the movie, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it for me.
Me as well.
All right. What
yeah.
do you got for who wins the movie?
Who wins? Obviously, the GOAT himself, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you agree?
Ian McGregor wins it here.
Ian McGregor for sure.
Yeah. And I watched this and I was like, man, if this was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, I wonder why he didn't get a nom for Best Actor.
Yeah, I don't know.
He kills it.
He does.
Like, he does a really good job here.
Yeah, he really embodies the role.
Yeah.
And hard to see anyone else who could fulfill that role as good as he did.
Mm-hmm. Any themes here?
I was thinking about this. Other than like the very obvious, drugs are bad. Choose life. There's more to life than the dirt, the pleasure of the very instant gratification of that drugs bring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's any deeper things.
Yeah.
First watch is, especially with the movie with this kind of subject matter, it's a little bit harder to wring it out.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
if you were to just take away from that, I think it's still a good themes right there to take away.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that I left with feeling wise in this movie was just like the depravity of addiction and like how low you really are willing to stoop, and just how often someone like can relapse, and like how somebody could have the best intentions to like try to stop, but they just can't. And I like that the movie like shows that side of Renton, where like he like makes efforts to try to stop but just cannot do it. But it doesn't do it in a way where it's like, let's feel bad for him.
No.
It shows it in a light where he's like, I'm making the conscious effort to go back and to do this because I want to.
Yeah.
And I like that it tackles it from that angle, I think.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting to see the different reasons people go to or choose to do it.
Yeah.
Like whether it be for that pleasure, or we even talked a little bit about of like that suppression of guilt and all, of all the horrible things that happen.
Yeah.
They're also somewhat, there's like a character like Tommy who was like, well, my friends are there doing it, I want to try it.
Yeah.
And maybe he's dealing with stuff too, but it's like that. There's a peer pressure aspect of it, and there's plenty of avenues.
Yeah, I was gonna say even too in the intro, Renton even like hits on that a little bit, and he's like, everybody's got their own reasons for why they do it.
Yeah.
Whether that be like your job sucks, your marriage isn't great, you don't have a love life, you had a hard day at work, you don't have money to pay rent, or you can't put food on the table or anything like that. Guess what? This can make all of that go away, or make you stop thinking about that stuff for a while. And if I don't have to think about that stuff and all the pressures of life for a few seconds, and I can just enjoy this moment, then that's worth it. And it's wild, and I mean, you hear that and you're kind of like, anyone that's again, kind of take into context the meaning of the film,
the
name,
title,
Trainspotting, like to somebody who is not in it, that sounds crazy, but to somebody who is fully in, that makes sense. And I like that is shown throughout the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
If that's it, what are we rating this?
I'm gonna give this one a solid 8.
Okay.
I liked it enough to enjoy it, but it is an 8. It's like an 8, but I'll never watch it again. When people talk to me, I'll get the flashbacks of the baby, and I'll just think like, that movie is so deep or so like dark and depressing. Yeah, but it's good. Yeah, if you want to watch it, go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna back you up and say 8 as well.
Okay, cool.
It is a movie that I think everyone should watch once.
Yeah, once once.
So if you haven't watched it, watch it one time. If you feel it calling to you again, maybe wait a little bit and go back into it. But yeah, nonetheless, that's about it for the episode.
That's it for Trainspotting.
Yeah. So as always, as when we get to the end of the episode, we talk about other ways that you can communicate with us, whether that be through the rate and review system on the audio platforms that we post our podcasts to, so Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you guys are thinking on the rate and review system. Give us a star rating or something like that. Write a little review. Tell us what you're liking, what you're not liking, what we can do better, how we can potentially make this thing the best that we can possibly be. As well as over at YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, like the videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel again, hit the bell notification so that way you're notified when stuff gets uploaded, because I know sometimes we got issues where, the upload doesn't happen immediately on time, or I edit at midnight and go to upload and then realize the upload is scheduled for a day later or something like that. So if you have the bell notification on,
It helps,
you will be notified immediately when that thing uploads, and you'll be the first to know right then and there. If you want to, partake in any of this communication or letting us know what you think on a not so public platform, you can hit the episode descriptions and hit us up through our Instagram, our email address, or our Letterboxd accounts.
Yeah.
And you can use those methods of contact to let us know what you're thinking there as well.
All right.
But as always, we're going to get into our next pick for the week, which is Nick's pick.
It is my pick. I struggled thinking about what movie to watch, and talking with Lisa, there's a movie where I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I know we talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to really dive into it and watch it again and enjoy it. And we're going to be talking about the 2022 movie, The Menu.
Nice.
This is currently streaming on HBO Max.
Yes.
And it is, I think I had a great time. Like the last time I watched it, I remember being really engaged. It's almost mysterious in some ways, and it's got a really heavy performances from Ralph Fiennes. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, who I think does a great job. And it's just all around a very interesting take on the side of food criticism, food art, where that blends with high-end people and also just the common folk, and how you're willing to do all that. And I love it.
Yeah, it's a huge satire on the culinary space in general. And one of the reasons why I liked this movie so much, I don't think I would have liked it had I not found Maddie Matheson.
Really?
Yeah, because Maddie Matheson, for the people who don't know, is a cook who does not abide by any of the class system in the culinary arts, and he's just very adamant about saying that that's all BS. And I think if I didn't know who Maddie Matheson was and adore him, I wouldn't have liked this movie or not understood it, because I'm not in the culinary space or following chefs, or knowing you need to plate, this specific way and cook it to this temperature and all this stuff and everything. It's very, minute details that make up what, culinary arts are and all that stuff. And this movie tackles all that stuff head on.
It does.
And
in ways I think are brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm excited to watch it again, because the first time I watched it, I was laughing. I had a fun time watching it, and the entire time I was just like, man, where are they going to take this? And then it would just divert my expectations a million ways. So I'm excited to dive back into it and see potentially what Abe thinks, because I don't think he's watched it.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. Second watch for both of us, and probably, I hope I feel the exact same way. So
yeah, me too.
We'll see.
All right. Well, tune in next week to hear what we have to say about The Menu. As always, this has been the Film Bros Podcast. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.